If you're new to the content creation space, you are dealing with so many things that are being thrown at you. You're probably watching YouTube video after YouTube video to learn how to just simply pull out your smartphone and start making content. And you're probably watching Gary Vee videos, Mr. Beast videos. Those guys are way, way, way up there. What I would highly recommend is identifying individuals in your community that you can meet with in person that are on fire. They may not be Mr. Beast, Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan. I'm in Austin, Texas, so all those guys are here. In this case with Chris, he agreed to go on my show. I invited him to this setup and he said, hell no, we're not doing that. We are using my professional studio. And I learned so much from that. And I just wanted to thank Chris and his team for having me at Record ATX. It was an amazing experience for me. I learned so much. So if you're new to the space, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to continue to push out content that is relevant for what you're doing, right? I'm going to post something and then I'm actually going to call out my mistakes, whether it's lighting or maybe I used the wrong setting in my camera or maybe I could have done something in post-production. I'm going to call out all those things as I'm producing content so that you can learn from my mistakes and you don't have to go through that whole process of buying a bunch of equipment that you don't need. So feel free to like, subscribe, share. This is my journey, and this experience with Chris Walker at Record ATX Studio was incredible for my journey in the content creation space. So enjoy the video. Well, Chris, thanks for having me on. Good to be here. Good to meet you in person.
Good to be here. Got the nice studio. We never really do it in person, but here we are. So meeting you for the first time. Love doing the in-person studio, love the energy. So looking forward to diving into whatever we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. No, it was cool. So I just sent you a DM on LinkedIn and you agreed to meet with me. So I think that's a good place to start. Like, why did you agree to meet with me in the first place?
You know, I get DMs like all the time to do podcasts and things like that. And I say yes 99% of the time because it gives me an opportunity to create a piece of content. It gives me an opportunity to meet somebody. And so I generally, I think I just have like a lot of a yes mindset. I think that a lot of people say no to things and they close themselves off to opportunities. And so I just try to say yes to things that feel right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so who is Chris Walker? Like, I see your videos all the time. I've been in sales for 10 years. I started at Oracle, like a lot of people did in Austin, right? And now I'm at a startup company. We have a product market fit, but how do we go to market, right? So I always tune into your content, listen to your stuff on LinkedIn, which is awesome, really good stuff. But who's Chris Walker? Like, where are you from? How did you get to Austin and why are you staying in Austin?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire called Brookline, New Hampshire. No stoplights. We had one yellow flashing light, population 4,000. It was like so small that we had to take a town next to us called Hollis and combine it into a high school because we didn't have enough people to have a high school in my own town. And then I went to college in Massachusetts, a school called WPI, studied electrical computer engineering, moved around for about 10 years, lived in LA and small stint in Cleveland, probably the worst stint. Chapel Hill, like Research Triangle, went back to LA, back to Boston. And then about 2 years ago, I just had I just had this feeling that I needed to be somewhere and that place was Austin. So I have like a very strong intuition. I can almost like it's a feeling in your stomach and it's both a good and a bad. You can get in a good version and a bad version. This was a good version. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something there for me. And so I follow that a lot. So I followed the intuition. I moved to Austin 2 years ago. Have been here. Things have been going really well for me. I really like it here.
You've really built this go-to-market machine with your companies, and you avoid the silos, right? That oftentimes happens in a lot of the legacy setups. So just kind of curious as to your thoughts on going from kind of a smaller company and building out a go-to-market. Or not grow to market.
Yeah. Silos are one thing, but typically become an issue at bigger companies. Like as you have like the 50-person marketing team and the 100-person sales team and the 20-person SDR team, like that's when silos really become an issue at your size and scale. It's really about finding an efficient way to get your target customer to understand what you do and the value of what you do. A lot of companies try to do that by having a 22-year-old SDR bang the phones and call 100 dealerships and try to pitch them and get one connect a day and get no meetings. It's just expensive and inefficient. So trying to figure out what is the optimal way for our target customer to understand what we do, which then leads them to consider buying, which is then a great time to have sales then engage and have that expensive human capital engage. And so like 10 years ago, when there wasn't data, there wasn't a lot of social networks, B2B buyers didn't use the internet for that much research. At that point, having a salesperson either in the field or doing inside sales to call and teach someone about a technology was a better process than it is today. But now buyers can use the internet. They have social networks. They trust their peers. And so what do we need to do? We need to figure out ways to produce content and then get content to them. Events and webinars, recorded demos using our website, customer stories, paid distribution to get it to them. There's a variety of ways to do that, which creates scale and creates cost efficiency of the way to get buyers interested. And then after that, then you start doing sales.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'd like to kind of double tap on that or double click on that. So like content creation is becoming more and more important for companies that are just starting out, right? Like how do you target your ICP? Like how do you produce content that your buyers are going to be exposed to, right? Like what is the best approach to that, especially with the emergence of dark social, that whole concept, which I know that you're tapped into. Like how would you recommend a small company like mine to create content?
Yeah, I like breaking this up into two different phases. You have content creation and you have content distribution, and companies will miss in both categories. But on the content creation side, where companies miss is that they create content for themselves. They create content of what's going to get the most clicks or the most downloads or something like that, rather than what's going to help their customer learn and actually engage and buy. Driven mainly by the fact that the people that create the content don't actually understand the customer, and the customer is not participating in the creation process. The way that I overcome that is that I use a live event where my target customer attends, and then I produce information that's going to help them for free. And then I get a feedback loop from them of, is this actually valuable? What questions do they have? Things like that. That then when you involve your target customer in the content creation process, you have a much higher degree of confidence that the content that you're creating that then you're going to go to pay to distribute is effective and getting and helpful for them. So the content creation process, very simple framework. Just use a live event with your target customers to be able to create it. You also, the person that hosts the live event must have the expertise that actually helps your target customers. So ideally, if you're selling to dealerships, that, the person that's hosting the event was the COO at a dealership or something like that, right? Has the relevant experience to be able to help those people. And then on the distribution side, then if you have content that you've been proven out on that, then you have a flow of organic and paid distribution. Organic channels are basically decided through customer research where our target customer is consuming content. For you, that might actually be TikTok. It might be less LinkedIn. I don't know. You'd have to go and ask them and do surveys and market research and things like that. And then on the paid side, you could do the same thing and just figure out paid basically guarantees I'm going to give the content to this type of person or to this exact person.
What's really interesting, and especially listening to your content, is over the past 10 years, we've seen a change in B2B.
Yeah.
I mean, a loaded statement, right? And I know you're well tapped into that. But what I've really seen is that these customers, their buyer's journey really begins with their peers and figuring out where their peers hang out, whether that's on Facebook groups or, different other groups where they're having conversations about, oh, hey, I need to invest in a mass notification solution, or I need to invest in a merchandising solution. That's really where the buying journey starts, especially like in my space, the automotive space. It's like they have these things called 20 groups where essentially they sit down, and after their round of golf, they talk about best practices and what they're doing to enhance their customer's journey. And so it really starts in these like forums and things like that. So like as a individual contributor, as I am right now, and so many of us are that are probably tuning into this, how can we go about kind of separating out what we know as intent data and really focusing on where our customers are meeting and having these conversations about what to invest in?
Yeah, I mean, like the first step is acknowledging that this happens. Many B2B companies, because it doesn't show up in their attribution software and they don't spend time doing customer research, or if they do customer research, they have happy ears and they pretend and they ask questions for what they want to hear, not what the customer actually does. So the first step is acknowledging that this is real, that B2B customers are hanging out in communities and they're not actually looking for a solution when they're there. They're spending time with their peers, understanding, being able to ask a question and get an answer that they trust. And when they do have something that there's a couple things. One is sort of reactive, like I'm in the community and someone talks about, oh, I just bought this thing. It's so helpful for me. And all of a sudden I went from not interested or not aware of this thing. And all of a sudden, oh, there's a merchandising solution that I might consider. And then that might drive me to go to the website or it might drive me to ask more questions. There's a reactive thing that happens in communities, or it's proactive where maybe they see a business problem inside of their company or someone's pissed at the tool. And then they go into the community and say, hey, this tool sucks. Which one should I use? Either way, whether it's reactive or proactive, the key is that B2B buyers get the primary information that they use to make buying decisions from their peers, not from your website, not from your sales team, not from your blog on Google, not from the affiliate that you pay on Google, and things like that. And so having that recognition about where is the information that B2B buyers actually trust, also knowing that it doesn't show up in your analytics, I think is the core realization for people to make.
Why is that? Like, why the shift?
So if you look back, I think there's a really interesting parallel to Yelp in the restaurant and B2C community, where in 2012, Yelp was a very trustworthy source. People went there to figure out, where should I get coffee? What restaurant should I go to? Where should I get brunch? And they would get real reviews and real things and things like that. And then over time, what happened? It became a marketing ploy. People would pay to get reviews. People would hire an agency to make thousands of fake reviews about their website or about their restaurant. And it got gamed. And all of a sudden, people don't trust Yelp anymore. And the same thing happens in Google search. 2012, B2B, Google search was very trustworthy. The ebooks that you read were very, expert level and trustworthy. I remember Rand Fishkin making videos about SEO back in 2011, an expert that actually did it, making a lot of great information. And then over time, what happens? Okay, now we're going to make it a marketing ploy. We're going to hire some shitty agency that doesn't understand our customer to make 1,000 blogs a month. We're going to use AI to generate, content. We're going to write an ebook that is going to get the most leads, not the thing that's going to help our customer. And it became a marketing ploy. And so what happens is that basically over time, there are sources of information that you trust the most and the least. And those things can change over time. But what's happened over the past 5 years is that B2B buyers, when they used to not be able to interact with 20 other dealerships or 20 other CIOs or 20 other CFOs in their vertical, now they have a community for that. They know how to find those people on LinkedIn. They follow content from thought leaders. They can send a DM and get real information. They have a group with their private equity firm or their VC firm where all those executives get together and share information. And all these places where B2B buyers didn't have 5 years ago, now they have all of those places. So instead of going to Google and searching, what should I do about this? They go into the community and search it. They go to their PE firm and ask. They go to the LinkedIn group or the thought leader and ask them. And so it's just about the availability of information that wasn't available 5 years ago that people now, one, have available, and two, through the like post-COVID lockdown and remote work and things like that, now executives and decision makers that deploy millions of dollars in budget have also been trained about how to do these things.
Interesting. Yeah, and what about social listening or this idea of open source intelligence, right? Where you have RSS feeds set up and you might be monitoring for like certain keywords or topics or Boolean searches. Is that something that you often see when you come across these companies that you're going into and you're evaluating and consulting with these B2B strategies?
I think social listening is mostly garbage, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that valuable. I think share of voice is a shitty metric as well in B2B. I don't think that it matters. I think that we should be way more focused on actually being in there as business professionals and engaging with people. And so I think there's a big difference between having a dashboard about every time someone says auto dealer versus having a big following of auto dealers that listen to your content. I think that I just think that there are better ways to approach it than like looking at a dashboard about how many tweets happen for that keyword.
Yeah. And kind of staying like with this flow of, you approaching like a B2B, consultation, like you'll often see like a tech stack, right? And, like specific things that they're doing, whether it's like Salesforce data, analyzing Salesforce data to try to figure out the best approach to go to market and invest in human capital versus maybe investing in like a business intelligence or business analyst professional. Like what are your thoughts on that front?
You kind of have like the financial level, like the CFO level here, which is like how much do we spend on sales and marketing and technology and data and all those different things, and how much do we get back in terms of total revenue and customers. Then what would be the equation of how long it takes us to pay back all the sales and marketing expenses based on the recurring revenue that we generate, or what is our CAC to LTV ratio, which I don't like as much because LTV in SaaS is very made up. Like you have to make a determination when you make CAC to LTV that your average customer stays for 7 years, when in reality you've only been in business for 2. So how do you really know? And so I think CAC to LTV can be very misleading, and CAC payback period provides a much more direct, tangible measurement of overall effectiveness. So you have like the financial level metrics, and then you have inside of the go-to-market, the decisions of what is the actual thing that we should be doing. We need to have customer research to understand what our customers are doing. We need to have the right data to understand where are the leaks in our sales process, where are the inefficiencies in our marketing spend. Do we need to be using this data, and should we be adding on technology to make what we're working is better? Or do we need to break down what we're doing completely and build something new? And a lot of that, while there's a lot of data behind it, there's a lot of art. B2B companies have data everywhere. Every B2B company has data. The problem that they have is that they don't know how to use that data to make strong, confident decisions. That's what we're focused on at my company, Paceto, combining proprietary signal-based analytics, but also having a layer of expert go-to-market consulting that then helps them take that data and actually make the decisions against it, because that's the actual root of the issue. Like the $100,000 a year analyst, or like the $3K a month package that you buy in addition to your attribution vendor, is not helping your CFO or your CMO decide how to deploy $20 million in revenue effect. And so we think that there's actually a blend here between service and technology that's going to close the gap for companies.
Now, I kind of already know the answer to this question, but the role of SDR, like there's a lot of friends in my community and that I, talk to on a daily basis that are talking about the role of the SDR, especially over the past 2 years, where, you have the intent data, right, that you can analyze, right? So like, what is your opinion of SDRs, and how can companies go about making strategic investments when it comes to outreach?
The SDR model is totally broken, doesn't make financial sense anymore. And it also, the data was clear that it didn't make financial sense in 2019, but money was flowing and nobody cared. And now that the economy slows down and there's pressure, and B2B value, especially tech and SaaS valuations, are way down, now companies actually have to scrutinize something that didn't work 5 years ago, still doesn't work today, but now they have pressure to actually scrutinize it. There's a variety of problems in this model, but I'll highlight the most important one, is that me as a professional produces more business outcomes than a 100-person SDR team by myself. By creating content, I invest 6 hours a week creating content and produce more results than 100 SDRs working 50 hours a week. What is that? 5,000 hours. I produce more output in 6 hours than a team of 100 people does in 5,000 hours a week. And that's about as clear as I can say it, is that what is the difference? A 22-year-old post-college person trying to make a value prop to a CFO at a dealership, or a CMO at a $100 million company, or a Fortune 500 CEO. That person cannot provide value, does not have expertise, does not have the skills and tangible things necessary. I saw what business development looked like in 2010. Experienced, expert people, very much mature in their career, would target tier 1 accounts, big deals, $1 million contracts, spend 2 years trying to close those things, building relationships, not being so short-term focused, doing all of the right things about what business development actually is. And then we got into this cycle of, let's do the predictable revenue model, and RAEs are too busy to do prospecting. And so what happened? We hired a $100,000 person to do prospecting for RAE, And what did our AE do instead? They played golf on Thursday. They cleaned their house. They didn't use the extra time to be more effective. They used the extra time to be better, to use it for themselves. And what happened across B2B go-to-market is go-to-market bloat, over specialization of roles where you have an SDR, an AE, an SE, an onboarding manager, an AM, a CSM, all to take care of one 10K a year customer. And it just doesn't make sense anymore. And I remember back in the day, you had an AE that did full stack. They did prospecting, they did sales, they did onboarding, they did account management, they did expansion, all one person. And it creates a different level of incentive structure for that AE. It creates a whole different mindset about which customers those persons are going to close, where they're going to focus, how they're going to spend their time. And I think we just need a total reset in how go-to-market works that's far more customer-centric and far more financially and fiscally responsible.
Yeah, so you said something interesting about, the SDR model versus what you're doing, right? With creating content for
business development.
Yeah, business development, right? Yeah. So when you think about content creation and the distribution, like what platforms would you recommend tapping into? Are you seeing the most success with when you're posting? Are you focused more on YouTube, LinkedIn? Does it all across the board? Like, how are you doing things?
I mean, what really matters is where your customers consume, combined with where is the most opportunity for organic reach. And so in 2019, targeting CMOs and revenue executives, it was blindly obvious that LinkedIn was the best place to post content. And I would get millions of views every week posting content on that platform that got seen by a bunch of people. In 2021, 2022, you saw this wave where TikTok was actually the largest opportunity for organic reach, but maybe CMOs and revenue leaders and things didn't use that at scale. And so you need to have this match between my audience is there at scale and there's an overlap of organic reach and opportunity. I think that LinkedIn is at the end of that trail. It's still probably the most impactful platform for almost any B2B professional to post organic content, but I think it's heading toward the end of that. I continue to diversify channels. So we have LinkedIn running, but also YouTube Shorts, YouTube long form, podcast production, which can be a really great medium for long form, TikTok. So we have many channels running today.
Staying with the content creation space, like the content economy, what is your thoughts and opinions of influencers and these content creators that these large, Fortune 50 companies are hiring to really start to go to market with their brand and, come out with maybe like an unboxing of a new product and things like that? Like what is the effectiveness of like an influencer coming on board?
I think we desperately need to divide this into what B2C companies do versus what B2B companies do, because it's dramatically different. Who was Michael Jordan? Michael Jordan was an influencer for Nike. He was also a great basketball player. What's, Tiger Woods, LeBron, you can go, Flo from Progressive or, whoever from Allstate. You can go down the line and look at all these people that were influencers for B2C companies. What was the structure of those things? Long-term, performance-based incentives, the right mindset, using them in all the different content, things like that. What do B2B companies do? None of that shit. They do a one-off influencer deal of, hey, Dave Gerhardt, can you post about our job posting for $100? And just do a one-off post. Most B2B companies don't do influencer marketing at all. And the ones that do think about it as a one-off or a nice to have and haven't really scaled it because they don't think about it in the right way like B2C companies have done for decades. And I think that's really what we need. Fewer people. So it's not like B2C companies, especially D2C brands, have gone in this micro influencer track and it's starting to get very watered down. But if you look at the staples, the things that have really worked, huge people, large contracts, performance incentives, long-term deals and things like that. I am fascinated that there's not been a single MarTech company that's tried to engage with me in that type of contract. It just blows my mind that nobody's even considered that because of the work that I have done over the past 6 years to build an audience and to build trust and credibility and things like that a MarTech company could never replicate. Never. And so I just think it's a really interesting parallel because as much as people like to talk about doing new tactics in B2B, they're like, oh, let's go find something sexy to do. Nobody does. They all do the same dumb shit they've been doing for the past 10 years, putting new lipstick on it or buying a technology tool, but it's all the same stuff. There's basically no innovation in B2B.
So shifting gears from content creation over to human capital, what does the future of an individual contributor look like?
The financial structure drives all of this stuff. And so what is the future? I think that we'll go back to basics. We will go back to the way that it worked in the early 2010s and before the end of time, where you have a experienced AE, a salesperson that has a target set of accounts that are high value, does the prospecting and builds relationships with those accounts, manages the sales process, manages upsells and expansions and renewals. Maybe someone else, there's a CSM that's helping the customer be successful and drive usage, but the salesperson will manage full cycle all the way through, which drives. And it's interesting because if you look at the tenure of a sales rep at a SaaS company or at a B2B company is so low. And if you look at other industries like insurance or other things like that, where salespeople get paid based on their book of business, not just based on the deals they close, that it incentivizes a salesperson to stay a lot longer when you build up a book of 100 customers and all of a sudden you're making a residual amount of money for all the customers you closed 4 years ago. And so I think the entire model of that is driven by the tenure or the low tenure of sales reps, the low quota attainment, most sales reps not hitting OTE, this massive disparity where you have like 5 reps that make $1 million and then 1,000 reps that are all really low performing, and this big dichotomy of like very high performers and very low performers. I think that all of these things are signaling that it's going to be less people, much more experienced, that are paid very generously for their contributions rather than this pursuit of headcount and scale.
Got it. And there's a lot of talk, in the sales community about the role of client success and the account manager, like farming versus hunting. How would you weigh those two roles, and what would you say about the role of the account manager moving forward?
That hunting's dead.
Whoa.
Cold hunting in sales, unless you're doing $1 million, 9, 8, 7, 8, 9-figure deals, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And so it's all farming now. Marketing creates demand, and then you're either farming for a net new customer or you're expanding a current customer. And I think the idea that we're going to go out and bang the phones and our sales team's going to go and hit the street and we're going to go door to door and all that shit is just so fucking outdated and dumb and doesn't match with how customers actually buy today. And so this idea of hunting versus farming, I just don't think that overall assumption, I think, is what it should be challenged.
But I enjoy hunting.
I'm sure a lot of people enjoy hunting. I enjoy hunting. I get a list of all the people that have been on my website last week, and I can go and send them emails and things like that. And I know for sure that I get a lot more meetings because millions of people know who I am. And so it's not whether as a professional we like it or not. It's whether or not our customer likes it or not, and whether it works at a level that's efficient enough to scale and grow a business. And I think that's really what needs to be challenged. I've seen people try to go out and hunt, and sure, you win a customer here and there, but back in the day in 2017, most of the hunters were actually farming because that was the only way they could get to their quota.
Yeah, or compliance deals. If you're talking about database, you got a customer that's out of compliance, you work with the compliance team, you put together a new package to get them to the cloud, and it's a better deal.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's places where it can work, especially where there are laws and regulations that can be leveraged in order to make it work. But I think broadly, it's just not. The easiest way to look at it is, what does my customer do when they buy something? And then does that match what I'm trying to do? And often it doesn't.
Got it. Yeah. Hunting is dead. Are we going to hashtag that?
Yeah, let's put it out there. We'll put the title of the episode.
So how should one go about investing in human capital in the marketing department?
It's a very vague question. When we think about like how companies should divide their marketing budget, our current recommendation is 40% headcount, whether that's internal W-2 agencies, fractionals, consultants, 40% headcount, 60% programs, somewhere in that range. Programs would be event spend, advertising, content creation, you know, dinners to have like a to try and accelerate pipeline, hosting our user conference to get our customers to expand, all that different money spent on programs. I think that every department in B2B companies, if you look specifically in tech SaaS, you look at other places, you'll see like we just started working with a $60 million industrial manufacturing company. And there's 3 people in their marketing department at a $60 million company. If you went to a same revenue type of SaaS company, they would have 50 people in their marketing department. And I think there's just this massive bloat around how B2B tech and SaaS companies scale and use headcount that creates communication layers, misalignment. You know, every single person now needs their budget. Then you have all the different taxes and payroll and benefits around those people. And it like the idea that more people means more results or more people means more success is just not true. And you look at smart companies that are having small, fast-moving teams. Like we have a team of 2 people right now, me and somebody else, and we create more company than every $100 million company on the planet. Why is that? Those $100 million companies spend $20 million a year on marketing. They have 50 people on their team. They have super experienced executives that could do the same thing that I'm doing and sit down in a studio for 3 hours a week. So why don't they do it? I don't know. And it's weird to think because of all of the excess of resources, it creates laziness, it creates inefficiencies, it creates things like that. And so, like I said, you see smart companies are now going to lean, fast-moving teams, and I think they'll get much better results. And then it might even be more extreme where you spend 20% on headcount consultancies and agencies and 80% on programs. But overall, the entire investment that goes to marketing for most tech and SaaS companies has come down dramatically. And then for other industries, you watch companies that have financial discipline. The whole go-to-market expenditures for an industrial manufacturing company might be for sales, marketing, tech and tools, SDRs, agencies, the whole thing might be 10% of revenue. And you look at SaaS and that number's 50, 60% of revenue. And that stuff is just really out of whack.
So hypothetically, I get hired as the new chief revenue officer, VP of sales at a, I don't know, like a $5 million ARR, like SaaS company. Where do I start?
Look back at the past 12 months. Where were you 12 months ago? Was it 2 million ARR? Was it 4 million ARR? How'd you get from point A to point B? Was it you were at 2 million and then you're at 5 million because you had 100% net revenue retention and you got $3 million in net new customers? Or was it because you had 150% NRR and then you got $1 million in net new customers? So what was the makeup of how you got from point A to point B over the last 12 months? Try to get the breakdown between expansion and net new customers. Then look at all the money that you spent on sales, marketing, and all the other associated costs. Try to calculate CAC payback against net new ARR. Understand what that CAC payback period is. Then compare it with your CFO against both benchmarks and what your financial targets are for the following year. Then rebuild your model for the following year based on those assumptions, and then start to map out your plan of how we're going to get there. And so at the highest level, using past performance and financial benchmarks and financial targets that are at the top level, not what's our cost per lead, not what's our cost per meeting on an SDR, and not all of these micro metrics that companies use, but starting at the top level and then starting to work down, I think will lead to a lot better investment decisions. Another thing that I don't think chief revenue CMOs, or at least people that work on the teams that CMOs build, spend a lot of time trying to understand their customers. I don't think chief revenue officers spend nearly enough time trying to really understand, what does my buyer do? What source of information do they trust? Do they want to see pricing before they talk to my sales team? What do they want the sales team to be? What do they want the sales process to be like? How do they see us right now against our competitive set? What could we do to influence their perception of us against their competitive set? Are our salespeople providing value throughout the process, or did we hire a D1 athlete that doesn't know shit about medicine to try and sell to a neonatologist, when in reality we should have somebody that was a NICU nurse and we should train them to try and help do sales rather than trying to have a salesperson that doesn't do it. We just need to ask all those questions, especially as a head of sales, that I don't think get asked right now. Be a lot more curious around what our customer wants.
Well, to be fair, the D1 athlete might be knowledgeable about cold plunges and ice baths and things like that, to recover from stuff like that. But yeah, like going into the industry, probably not a good idea. I like to understand why a customer purchased the product.
Win-loss analysis is huge for sure.
And I think that gets overlooked. Like, why did they buy? You have a product market fit, but how do you know when you have a product market fit?
There's a variety of definitions. I think Mark Roberge is one that has a really strong definition, which is that our customers hit a certain amount of leading usage indicators. More than 80% of our customers hit these indicators, which basically predict and guarantee a specific CAC to LTV. I think that there's a real, got a cramp there. I think there's a real data in that and companies will, because some companies might not, if they raise a lot of money and spend, they might not actually hit that definition of product market fit until 15 or 20 million ARR. While other companies that are bootstrapped might hit that at 500K ARR. So I don't think it's a revenue value. I don't think it's total number of customers. I don't think it's a specific lifetime. I think it's actually a much more complex understanding about how do we get a certain amount of our customers to do the things that our successful customers do. So I think there's really something there. And a predeterminant to that is actually message market fit, which is that are we delivering a message that resonates with the market that compels them to buy? And then after that, does our product deliver on that message that compelled them to buy and deliver with the outcome that we promised? And then go to market fit. Can we deliver that message and close customers sustainably and profitably over time?
How are they continuing to get value and ROI after purchase?
Yeah, in a recurring revenue model business, that really matters. In a recurring versus reoccurring model, it's very different. Like if you look at Coca-Cola, like there really is no client success. If you look at a lot, like I bought shorts, like when my shorts run out, I buy new ones from the same brand. It's a reoccurring purchase, but not a recurring purchase. In reoccurring businesses, you must spend a lot more on marketing specifically. In recurring businesses, I think we should spend a lot more on making our customers that pay us every month or every quarter, every year, a lot more successful. So you have B2B companies that, especially the large ones, that try to decide how much they should spend on marketing based on a percentage of revenue that is commensurate with a reoccurring business model of a Fortune 500 CPG brand. And they spend a fuckload more on marketing than they should because they measure it against total revenue, not against net new ARR. And if they did it that way, they would spend so much less on marketing. Some of that money would then go into customer success and account management, drive up NRR. It's just a much better model, but they can't spend that. They can't spend that amount of money on making their current customers successful because they spend 50% of revenue trying to get new customers. There's just the entire financial profile of a SaaS business is going to change dramatically. It already is starting, but it's going to change dramatically over the next couple of years. You see leading public SaaS companies being valued at 5x next 12 months revenue. Private markets are starting to follow the same thing, although it's not quite there yet. And that profile is going to change entirely. How much do we spend on marketing? What specialized roles do we need? What's the split between how much we spend to retain and expand current customers versus go and get new customers? All those things are going to change, which I'm really excited about because me as I consider myself partially a CFO. I think a lot of the things that I say if CFOs listen to this, I think a lot of stuff would resonate with them. Coming from the lens of I have massive domain expertise in go-to-market and a great understanding of financials and how the financial markets are changing, and being able to combine those together would fundamentally change how we think about both go-to-market analytics and how we invest in those, which is effectively what my company Paceto is trying to do, and use a lot of data to tell an executive level story, whether you're a revenue leader, a CFO, or a CEO, about how we need to change and allocate our investments to hit certain financial targets like Rule of 40, a certain profile of growth rate, a certain CAC payback period that allows us to hit Rule of 40. They're all interconnected.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about business, KPIs, go-to-market, a lot of things business related, right? And we're seeing a lot of companies, like we just had the biggest deal in Austin history. I think Samsung, put a mark in that. I think that was yesterday, right? like, what advice would you give to the entrepreneur or, the tech salesperson that wants to move to Austin, and why is Austin such like a welcoming city?
Yeah, I think Austin is great. It's ironic because there was my girlfriend has had a friend visiting this week that was like basically trying to convince her to move to Austin. So we spent her time showing her around and showing her all these fun times. And we're talking at dinner on Sunday, and she was like, I really feel like I should be in Europe. And it's interesting because the advice is not about like, wow, Austin's working great for me. Like my advice, I'm not trying to convince anyone else to do anything that I do. It should be the real story should be trying to figure out how to tap into your intuition and tap into what you want, and then use that to guide your own decisions. Like I compared Miami, Nashville, Austin, and Scottsdale, and it really wasn't even a comparison because in my gut, I knew I was going to move to Austin. And so I think while Austin is growing broadly as an entrepreneur, as a professional, I think what you're looking for a place where there's a big population influx. Population influx drives opportunity. It drives new industries to be there. It drives more people to be there and generally more opportunities. So I think population growth is better than population decline. I'm not trying to get political here, but most of the population decline is happening in blue states. Most of the population increase is happening in red southern states. So I think that's one. I think the tax situation as a professional today, the state income tax disparities across states is a massive change in both your current and your future projected income and financial wealth. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's generally irresponsible to live in a place where there's a state tax greater than 8%, but you all make the decision that you want. I get that Santa Barbara is beautiful and maybe it's worth paying an extra 12% in income tax. So you make your own decision, but as you start making more money, that 12% starts to really matter. When I lived in Boston, with all the taxes put into it in my income level, I would have paid an extra 13.5% in taxes on my income than I do in Austin. And if you do the math over 5 years, or if I sell one of my companies, that would make an 8-figure difference to the amount of money that I have in my bank account just based on that 13.5% in taxes. And so I made partially a finance, but I would have gotten the same benefit in Florida. It's actually slightly better in Florida. And so there's a tax element, there's a population influx, there's just a general, like, what do you want type of element. I think the cities have different like feels and the types of people that go to certain cities. So making sure that sort of matches, Boston being like a very traditional one, San Francisco being very like a tech-oriented, kind of changing right now, Austin being like very progressive thinkers that come from California and New York and places like that. Miami used to be very crypto, fast cash type of people, but it's starting to become more balanced in tech and entrepreneur. So I think you also have to be able to match the types of people that are going to a place and whether that matches what you want or the people you want to be friends with.
Yeah. Following your intuition, I think, is a big key point that you just made. So I know we're running out of time here. If you could just leave the audience with one more golden nugget here, when it comes to, go to market, like what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, even outside of go to market, I've been so obsessed with this concept because it's even really relatively new for me. It's something that I think is a never-ending journey, but really, really trying to get clear on what do you want in your life and why do you want it, and trying to really isolate why. I spent so much time in my career thinking about just trying to make the most money possible while also, I don't consider them sacrifices. I don't look at it that way, but basically having like a one-dimensional life for quite some time where I was the CEO of a company. A lot of my ego was tied up into that. My net worth was super high into this one company, which like boosted my ego. I spent 80 hours a week working on this company. I would spend every Saturday and Sunday working on it. Other parts of my life took a back seat for a really long time. And what I started to learn about myself and what I started to learn that's really important is that the difference in the amount of hours that I worked, one, didn't necessarily drive more productivity. When you're starting a company and you have nothing, like I had $3,000 in my bank account when I started my company, you got to grind. If you don't, you're not going to get over that level that you want. To me, it's possible. You listen to anyone else that's been successful. You listen to athletes that have been successful. Everyone says that. But once you reach a certain level, you reach a point of diminishing returns where I think that level of effort starts to become unhealthy and that level of time commitment starts to become unhealthy, and trying to figure out what are the things that are really important to me and how do I balance those things out. So that, to me, the real issue was that all of the incremental time that I spent drove some level of incremental income where the incremental income made no tangible impact to my happiness or my life. And so, like, what's the difference between making $1.2 million a year versus $1.5 million a year? You buy one more European car, you get one more bedroom in your luxury apartment. It's just not that important. And what does it take to get there? Another 40 hours a week. The difference between working 40 hours and 80 hours a week is one European car and a garage of two other ones. Like, it just doesn't matter. And it took me a really long time to figure that out. And now that I have, I'm trying to share it with a lot of people because I know a lot of people think the same way that I used to. And it's been a real sort of unlock for me. And I find a lot more happiness in living a balanced life and putting things in categories and, maintaining boundaries when it comes to my work and my lifestyle. So that would be the number one takeaway for me.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, Chris. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate you coming in for the live session. Thanks, Julian.
Yeah.